Greetings, everyone, and welcome to tonight's exploration of Minecraft 1.18 pre-release 1. In this case, a conversion of my Cowcornia world, which had previously been seeded in 1.15.2 or whatever it was at the time, then converted up to upgraded to 1.16 and then 1.17 currently. Now up to 1.18 pre-release 1. And we're going to take a look tonight primarily at some of the things that we see along the borders, because that's kind of what's of interest. So let's take a look. So of course, leaving the atrium base here, still decorated for Halloween. I need to clear that up. I'll do that at some other point. And, of course, good old, the namesake atrium down here. All right, so usually in these, we kind of head off south. But tonight, I think what we're going to do, and we are kind of heading that way right now, but it's still a little bit of a flight. So what we're going to do, a little teleporting. Because I have a few things that basically what we want to do is revisit some sites that we first kind of ran across in snapshot 21W41A. Back when they were first doing the world conversions to 1.18. I want to revisit some odd sites that we came across there. All right, now here we are looking at the border of my 1.16 and 1.17 world, converted to 1.18 pre-release 1. And as you can see here, the border is not quite as clear-cut. It's not such a sharp dividing line. I mean, it's still a fairly sharp dividing line, but they've added a little bit of horizontal noise to it. So that it's a little bit more jumbled, a little bit more mixed. You can kind of see a little bit of what you might see as sort of a seam going along right here. That, I believe, is the actual world border. And for a little ways over here, it blends into the new land, although what we're looking at right now primarily is structures that we had seen before. And in this case, we can see, and let me get the weather cleared out here. We do have this little igloo that is generating out beyond the snowy terrain here. As you can see here, this is Stony Shore, but we have an igloo generating here. I wonder, does it have... Yes, it does have a basement. And we're going to actually come back up here. Come on now. I'm curious. It looked like there were some caves down below there, but I wonder if that will kind of intersect the basement structure. Yeah, it looks like it does. I think those blocks there kind of surround the basement of it. So we'll assume it has the usual basement contents. But of course, that is out here beyond the world seam there, and that's kind of what we've been seeing before on these world borders, where you have these structures that are been kind of generated out beyond what had been generated so far of the actual terrain. That seems to kind of get pre-generated before the chunks are fully generated. The blocks are all generated, and then they get generated in the 1.18 side. But the structures are still there. And that's kind of what we're going to be seeing some more of tonight. In some cases, pretty interesting. You may have seen the title card coming into this. All right, I'm going to switch away from the stream for a moment. And let's see, this next one, that first one I had noted as Beach Igloo. That was on a beach before. But the terrain generation in 118 has changed since 21W41. 21W41A, properly, with changes in the random number generation and all that. This one was noted as a snowy birch village. Basically, we have the snowy biomes over here. Looks like this is from the old terrain generation. Nice big field here. But then over on this side, in the new terrain, well, you can see some structures like this ice spike growing over here on the hill. And over here, what looks like just the paths of a village. And, you know, sometimes I've seen that noted. Sometimes some people have seen posted videos saying, oh, there's like this video here. It's all paths, no village. But we look over here down below in the valley. And let me jump around a little faster. Get back to fly. And you can see the village is down here on this level. All down here underneath. And, yeah, with the kind of stuff that you would expect to be spawning down here in a dark cave. And, oh, yeah. That's a bit of a hazard as well. So, yeah, back at the time, there was another village that we found that had a similar circumstances. Oh, yeah, wonder how that was built. And just a lot of it was poked into the cave. This is like almost entirely out in the caves. It's a very hazardous village indeed for anyone to be living in. And how this snow is staying up, that is amazing as well. So, yeah, some oddities in the structure generation in here. It's a very hazardous ones at that. And then this whole little row of igloos here. And this little snowy field are all sticking out. And you still have snow in there, even though it's, you know, under the hill. So, yeah, this might be an example of a structure, a complex of structures that were kind of generated out at this level and are still at this level despite the differing terrain being generated in 118. Presumably, if if these chunks had been generated in 117 or 116 or whatever, let's clear up the weather here. Those would have been up on the surface, but as it is, they are not. So, yeah, you get weird stuff like that still. So that is still something that that needs to be addressed in 118, or you're gonna run into that stuff. I'm about to say ruin because the next thing I have listed is ruined portal on the border. I was kind of scouting some of these out. I'm trying to remember if this one was actually showing up. I was trying to scout these out beforehand to kind of pre-generate the terrain and hopefully have it load up a little faster. Maybe. Okay, so Rune Portal, basically right on the edge of terrain generation being 118 and 117. In this case, with the terrain part of it blending a lot better, it's not really that much notable. Looks like it was on a plains before, and now it's like basically on the edge of a river. So, yeah, not that much going on for it. The netherrack is like kind of, you know, sticking out to the river a little bit there, but otherwise not that remarkable. So we're going to move on. Here's the next one we have here. Let's see. There's a ship. You know, there was a shipwreck on an iceberg. I think I checked that one, and it's more in a normal place now. Snowy Plain shipwreck. That one was down in the water. Okay, ocean monument on the border. This one was very interesting. And some of you may be anticipating this one. This one, when I came to kind of pre-scout this was kind of crazy. What had been happening for these ocean monuments right on the borderlands here was basically the big square or rectangular or squarish area they were in was being basically just carved out in order for them to fit in. Carved out of whatever land was being generated for the new terrain. In this case, some of that apparently is being kind of overridden. Because what we have here, let me drop down real fast to show you. And once our eyes adjust, we have basically half an ocean monument. Which is kind of cool. I mean, how often do you get to see a cutaway view of an ocean monument like this? Unless you're like doing like a render in like Chunky or something. Okay, and yeah, you can kind of see the stuff kind of poking out down there. The Guardians. And you can just go basically just right into the place. It's just wide open. Or at least this one little hallway is. Doesn't really go anywhere, does it? But there's probably some other things. Sponges are real easy to get to. So that's handy. So yeah, that's kind of a weird one. All normal over here. Up on the little pedestal feet. Like they generate sometimes if they're like jutting over a thing. Lots of glow squid. Then you come over on this side, on the 118 train generation side, and there's lots of holes in the ground here. I think it's starting to rain. Clear that up. Lots of a lot of caves being generated here, which is kind of cool. But yeah, not as eye-catching as this. This is just crazy. And there was another one, very similar. This one was noted Ocean Monument under Cliff. I remember that right. That was kind of generating right up against the Borderlands and kind of jutting into it. But again, we now have an ocean monument that is sliced in two. Though in this case, it's butting up against this this kind of gravelly bottom here that comes up. It looks like over on the original generation side, it you know, cuts its space into it as normal. But over on this side, or maybe this is all in the new generation side, but it's not doing all of it. Oh, there's a gold blocks right in the middle of there. Handy. Oh, hello, dolphin. Are you like not operational? Okay, there you go. Now they're starting to move. That was weird. So, yeah, things are getting sliced kind of crazy here. Looks like that is like... Is that like less than half of it? Kind of seems that way. Kind of weird. All right, so what else do we have in store here? Let's see. I would had some a few pillager outposts noted with no pillagers. That was a bug at the time. That's since been fixed. Pillager outposts are operating normally. Let's see. Unburied shipwreck above the beach. That one. Again, this now is a shipwreck that is now in the water. Which would not normally be, that notable. Let's see if I remember right. Is this the one I'm thinking of? Let's see. Where are you, Shipwreck? Oh, yeah. It is down here. And interestingly, it is like right on, perched on the edge of this ravine down here that goes way deep down to deep slate down here. And it is just right on the edge there, just settled on the edge. Which I thought was pretty cool. Not really that remarkable, not a weird terrain generation thing, but just kind of cool. Where's the time? Okay. And, another thing that I'd spotted. Again, just a little cool thing to go and see. What is this cave down here? It goes down, 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 deep down. Pretty cool. I just thought it was neat. Just thought I'd show you. Anyway, whoops. There we go. Kind of zipped through there, didn't we? And it comes over through this way. Oh, we got down into the lava and all that. Not going to go into there. You know how those go. Big old extensive cave system right there with just one little strip of land here blocking there from being a huge waterfall. Be interesting to see if that goes down into the lava lake or elsewhere. And clear. This next one here, and it's right here. Now, in this case, we have an ocean monument that appears to be entirely intact. And in this case, we're getting more of the guardians. I didn't really see all that many guardians in those little half ones. And it makes me wonder if there was like some key chunk that just wasn't getting generated that is sort of the center of all these spawning. And that without that, they just don't do it. So those were some vulnerable monuments. And in this case, you can see the kind of structure that we were originally seeing in some of these border monuments. And that it just cuts out its big square of area around it, maybe with a little bit of taper on the edge, to fit it in. And in this case, it's just fitting it right down at the level that it was, originally slated to generate. It does drop its feet down to whatever terrain is below there. So that part of it gets generated successfully. But otherwise, it is just bitten out of the terrain here. And I'm curious why this came out intact while those others didn't. And this is very handily right next to this this little village here, which also is right over by that big cave over there. I do not envy the parents in that village having to keep their kids out of trouble. What had been around this area was like a shipwreck and some ocean ruins. When I was scouting this out, I did not see any signs of that. And I think the last time we visited this area, we didn't see them either. But back in the 21W, was it 41? We were seeing some of the ruins basically just generating up in the hillside here. Presumably now they're down in the water. So we're not going to bother looking at that. So let's see, what else do we have? Let's see, Pillager Outposts and floating islands. That's probably generating normally now. But I do want to see if it is obeying the local topology now, or if it is again kind of generating at its own level. I've seen some sand settling in down there. Notice that sometimes flying over the new terrain, we start getting within range of the of the simulation range. As we approach it from back out in the rendering range, we start to see stuff that had been generated, and then suddenly the sand settles down, or gravel. It's interesting. So yeah, these had been generating on like these kind of floating islands next to the shore. They're still next to the shore here by this river. But because they are up on shore, they're kind of up on the big heaps of sand and sandstone here. So the local terrain, it is true to the local terrain. I think originally it was like on dirt and grass blocks. Here it's by this beach or desert or whatever it is. So it is doing sand like it's supposed to, except in this little corner here by the river. But otherwise, yeah, it is heaped up there. So they are being generated at the elevation that it appears to be an elevation that it anticipated based on the old terrain generation. In this case, it's close enough to what it ended up being. But I think originally it was associated with the with these snowy biomes over here, and maybe some hills continuing off that way. But again, we're seeing, which you can see like on the border here between the chunk generations, how it instead of a straight line, delineating the different biomes, it's all a bit more jumbled now. They added a bit more noise to the biome distribution there, the border there. And let me clear the weather here so you can see that a little bit better. So in some cases, like this, there is still contrasting biomes. Like in this case, going from the snow to the desert. So it's not going on, say, a cold to hot gradient. It's not putting like some sort of a moderate temperature biome in between as a as a transitional biome. All they're doing is just kind of jumbling the border of the two a bit, and which is a little bit better, I guess, than just a straight line like they kind of had before. Just adds a bit of noise to it, and I think that's okay for like the next approximation of what they need. But I think they do need some transition biomes. I think there needs to be something in between these. Maybe. I mean, I guess you can have a cold desert, but in some other cases, it's let's say if you're going from like snow to jungle, that's a bit more abrupt. All right. Moving on. Let's see, another Pillager Outpost with no pillagers. Okay. Plains, ocean ruin. Let's see what we got there. Let's see if I remember correctly. This might have been the last one I pre-scouted. No longer in the plains. Now it is down below. And like way down below in a crevice there. So it's now in the ocean. No longer all that remarkable. The terrain generation over on the 118 side is completely different. In this case, it is now this cold biomes here, and you got the ocean shore over that, and it looks like, is that a yeah, it looks like a little village over there. And let's set the time actually to daytime. So yeah, got a nice little snowy village over that way. Just normal generation for that biome. Nothing to worry about. And over here, the old terrain generation with whatever the heck they got over there. All right, but yeah, again, the border now a bit more varied and jumbled, as you can see from the edge of the ice there. Although you get into stuff over here where the biomes that are bordering on each other are not necessarily what you would normally see bordering on each other, like this big ice spike that is like right next to the forest here. And yeah, and you would probably see at some point, you see the same kind of thing bordering against like a jungle or something, or badlands. Okay, so moving on to some stuff that I think I did not pre-scout ahead. Let's see what we get here. This one I had noted as Savannah Ocean Ruin. Obviously, we're no longer in a savanna. Okay, so now we have this ocean ruin up here on the hillside, and the few drowns that are being spawned here along with the terrain generation, they are frying in the sun here. And since this is no longer in the water, it won't be spawning any others. These are just the few that are initially generated along with it. So, yeah, if you're approaching this over land, this would be a convenient little spot to pick up a few things. Now, of course, some of these guys are in the trees, but yeah, okay, he's done for. All right, so yeah, so now this is kind of bordering on, looks like this was an ocean here, but then it borders on these hills over this way. Actually, what are the biomes it has? Yeah, it's a beach. This is all beach here, apparently. Cold ocean. And it goes up into a beach, and then up to the plains. And then the snowy taiga, which is a neat little transition. It does transition from whatever the biome was on the old side. If over here was supposed to be a different biome, but the terrain, the elevation blending kind of brings it up over the water, it does kind of shift to a different biome. But not necessarily always the one that blends best to whatever it's going to be ending up in on the other side. I think some work needs to be done on that as well. And in this case, we still have the structures from what was presumed to be going to be over here, what biome was going to be over here, still being generated, even though there's a completely different biome now. So let's see what we got next. The next one we have was called, I noted that as a Savannah Beach Igloo. So let's see where that igloo is now. Okay, so it looks like we do still have the igloo, but in this case, it's out in the plains. I mean, it's fairly close to the snowy area, but still outside it. So you would normally expect there to not be an igloo there. Oh, and again, we have a basement. We're getting some good luck as far as these igloos having basements. And that one should be fairly easy to spot right there on the border, if you want to make note of those coordinates. Although, if you bring up this seed, you will not have that same edge of generated and not generated chunks that I do. So you're not necessarily going to be able to recreate this. A nice little ravine there. That looks pretty cool. A little water aquifer right there as well. All right, let's see what we got here. Next one, we have noted snowy village spanning cliff. The cliffs were, of course, at that time from the world edge, and we were pretty close to it. So yeah, we got the snowy village, and it is on the chunk border. In this case, we got the chunk blending going on here, the elevation blending, but the village itself, yeah, looks like it is being generated down at the elevations that were expected at the time that the village was kind of pre-generated. So yeah, we get this thing. Anything down here? Nope. We get this village kind of poking into the caves here. I'm not sure how much of this caves was just cave carving and how much of this was the village carving it out. Because it looked like there would be a path there. And over here. And let's stop the rain. We don't need all that. And then this was a path over here as well. So, yeah, a lot of villages being carved into the side there, but their paths being just laid up on top. So yeah, there are some problems with these with this village generation still in here on the borders. That is something I think is going to have to be addressed. And really, there are problems with village generation in general. And I think I've been planning on doing like a whole video just dedicated just to that. So I'm going to just leave it at that for now and get more into it later when I make that video. So the next one I had noted as a taiga shipwreck. Okay, so back when we found this, it was being generated up on the taiga. In this case, kind of up in a mountainside. Up in these meadows here. Which in 118 should be up at this level, but it is just whoop, dipping down into the ocean here. This is the kind of thing you see when you get high altitude and low altitude, very low altitude biomes that are butting up against each other. The terrain in the old chunks and the new chunks. You get this very steep, kind of wavy gradient, really. I think they need to work on that. And then you get things like this shipwreck just way, way up on the hillside here. I mean, you get kind of unusual view of it with the rudder and all that. And that structure, I wonder how far in it goes. Not gonna go digging into it. Maybe I'll do that later if I decide to go into this thing in more of a survival mode thing. Anything visible in here? Yeah, it looks like just some cave carving. Nice little waterfall going down into here. That's neat. How deep does that go? It goes in there a little ways. All right. Oh, and here we have another shipwreck right over here. And in that case, it is at least on the shore. But it's got some trees growing up right on next to it. And a little grass inside. Which is kind of neat. But it's odd that it's like up on this kind of shelf here. There's a cave going down underneath it. Kind of carved in at an angle. That's kind of cool. But let's move on. Next one was noted as Snowy Taiga Shipwreck. Probably have some different terrain now, different biome. Let's see where it generates this time. But the structures largely have been still there. We did have that one set of ocean ruins that didn't show up. Maybe it's buried in the mountain. Who knows? You might find some things if you go mining in the mountains next to in a steep transition area like that. Well, in this case, instead of the shipwreck being in a snowy taiga, it looks like it's along a river here. So it looks like it had some good luck in landing in an appropriate location. I'm trying to remember, do shipwrecks normally generate in rivers? Because this appears to be a river. Do they normally generate in rivers at all? To any with any frequency at all, even if very rare. I don't know. Let's get rid of the rain here. Come on. There we are. All right, so let's see. Moving on to the next one. This one we had. Copy that. That was a Plains Ocean Ruin. And looks like it's not much farther along. Let's see if we get the ocean ruin up here on the hills. Like we did that one other. So did it generate at all? Nothing down here. I don't see any sign of burning drowns. Anything down here? I don't see anything down there either. So unless it generated down in a cave or something, I don't think that generated at all, because I'm not seeing it down here in the water either. Excuse me. Because I think in some cases it's just not generating. It's weird. Now, some cases they're generating up on the shore, in other cases not. I'm wondering what the threshold is for that situation. All right. This one we had a Borderlands Plains and Plains village that looked pretty normal. I think maybe started on that one on the tour. Oh yes, because I started down here. Actually remarking about how normal this village appeared. And it still appears fairly normal. The terrain blends fairly well here. In fact, it's looking a bit more normal than it did on my first visit here. I think there was more stuff going over here with like some overhangs and and things like that that were a little bit unusual. If I remember, there was an abandoned village over this way. That might be this might be old generation over here, so it's probably still there. And in fact, yeah, it is still there. So that's kind of neat. Maybe I'll visit that someday in my normal world. But right now, this place is otherwise unremarkable. So now this is another one that I'd flagged as possibly the most dangerous village. Although I think we may have exceeded that this go around. At that time, it was generating, kind of jutting into some caves down inside a flooded valley. Let's see where it is this time. All right, we see some water generating here, so it might still be on the shore. It might be just one of those villages that kind of generates offshore somehow. Or maybe it won't generate at all. Let's see. Okay, there it is. Looks like we may just have a village floating in the water. Time of day here. So, yep, I think we had something like this, some other snapshots along the way. This village is just floating in the water, basically. So it was kind of pre-slated to generate around this location, and it turns out this generation is now in ocean in the new terrain side. But it looked like it was supposed to be like up on some plains, and now there's just some little bits of it that are going down under the water here. Nothing else supporting it. Just floating on these little islands here. In some cases, floating above the water. Let's take care of this. Here we go. So, yeah. That's neat. That happened. That's a weird one. But I think we've seen that before. We're seeing it still. It's still something that I think they need to address. Are they just gonna embrace the weirdness here, or maybe do a little bit more generation of land along these paths here? Because this just doesn't work. That's just not right. So yeah, I think they do need to still make some improvements on the borders here. Plains Shipwreck. Let's see where that guy is now. There's a lot of shipwrecks that generate along the border here. Anytime you got an ocean, you're going to have some shipwrecks generating. And if along the border you're getting up into some area that's not ocean, the shipwrecks are not going to be down in the water. In this case, wow, it's just on this little spit of land. Looks like it's by a river, I guess. But just up on the hillside. What you can get sometimes, you'll have a shipwreck up on the shore, but this is a bit high. Generally, you don't see them up quite this high. So I'm going to say, and yeah, it looks like it is transitioning here. So yeah, I'm going to say this is an anomaly. That was not supposed to be there. That was supposed to be down in the water, especially these broken up ones. Generally, they're down in the water and not really, floating at all, but more settled to the bottom. So that's not really where it's supposed to be. All right, and I have one more little Borderlands oddity noted. This one was noted as a jungle cave snowy village. It was basically a snowy village on the border that was butting up to some jungles that were up on a high elevation. In this case, it's probably going to extend the snowy biomes off into the new lands a bit, and that does appear to be what it has done. Wow, extending it out into Badlands, it looks like this time. The snow here. Oh, with a wow, with a mine right there. That's convenient. So, yeah. This looks like a nice place to visit. You got your village here with some of your resources there. Kind of a ready-made base to start out from. And then you've got your mines over here in the Badlands. And I'm sure there's gold in them there hills, as there usually is. And this is kind of west and south. In 118 pre-release 1, and this seed, I've been seeing enemy. Get the seed here. In this seed, I've been seeing a lot of Badlands, especially out to the west, and in this case, down to the south and west. So if you're looking for Badlands, maybe try that seed out in 118, because it looks like there's a lot to be had in here. Well, this isn't that big of a patch, but like over out to the west, huge Badlands area. Let's clear up the weather, because we don't need that. All right, and that's basically the last one we had noted. So let's take a look now. We're going to switch to Spectre. Whoops, let's not fat finger it. Let's go to spectator mode. Let's see. Let's make sure we are on the old side over here. Okay, I don't think we can fall in spectator mode. I think all we can do is fly. So we're gonna have to fly down. And let's see what is below the surface here. All right, let's let these caves go in here, and if we see, okay, this looks like this is the vertical border between the old chunks and the caves that they had generated up above, and the new caves being generated down below. And where's the edge of that? Okay, now we look like we're in the new terrain generation. And at the edge of that, I think it's fairly flat edges here. Right where it kind of butts up. And this is under lava here. It seems like it is, whoa, okay, fairly flat in places. Like here, you can see the where it just comes right up against the edge here, and it's of the old terrain generation, and it's just a flat wall. It looks like they've kind of maybe rounded it off in some places. And then down here, of course, we have, although that was, looks like a transition between old and new. And below, actually the Y0, which is strange to have a flat wall there. Because down below here we get the new terrain, new cave generation. And it seemed like it was just a continuation of what was being generated in general. What would have been generated there under the new system. That's pretty, but we're going back to day. Where are you? There we are. So what generally we've been seeing, like on the ceilings of these deals, is just very flat with the deep slate there where we would have had stuff. But it seems like they're kind of maybe tapering a bit at that transition. And I'm kind of lost where that transition is. And you can see over there off in the distance, you can see the lush caves going over there. So we do get some of that growing underneath the old bedrock. And speaking of bedrock, one thing that we had going on was that the bedrock had disappeared. And that down below, we didn't have it. So now we have the bedrock here. It was just all like deep slate all the way down. But now we have bedrock again. And I'm sure we will be seeing it here as these chunks more fully load eventually. Someday. Anyway, moving back up. So that's kind of what we're seeing down below. And whoops, the weather is turning bad there. Let's whoops, clear that up again. All right, and that's kind of what there is to see at the borders. We still have some odd structures being generated out onto the other side of the borderline. In some cases, it still within the extended biome. In other cases, it extends out beyond. And in the cases of those ocean monuments, some of those getting cut in half like that, that is just weird. So yeah, this is still a work in progress. I think we've hopefully we'll see some improvement in all that over the coming pre-releases and release candidates. I look forward to seeing what they do to improve this. If in the next few pre-releases, if you're not seeing improvement on this kind of thing, if you have the ear of somebody over at Mojang, point them over to this video. Let them see what I've been seeing, or show them some examples yourself of what's going on at the borders. Because I would think that they would be looking at these structures, but if they're not, big ol' oops, and they need that brought to their attention. Although I'm sure it has been, but don't assume. All right, so that said, you know what? I should not be just a disembodied little ghostly face. Dang it, I'm fat fingering that thing again. All right, so I think that will about do it for tonight. Because we've pretty much seen what there is to be seen along the borders here. Just all the weirdness going on with the structures, how the biomes are being kind of extended in a kind of a chaotic, noisy way over beyond the old and new terrain generation borders, which kind of helps to blend things a bit. although I think there does need to be maybe some transitional biomes between the old chunks and the new chunks as they go, and not just noise of the of where that stark border is. Instead of just a line, it's a bit more of a jumble now, which is, yeah, it's an improvement, but things could transition better, I think. Um, and then, of course, we have those ocean monuments that are getting cut in half, and or at different odd places along their along going across them. And then, of course, we have the caves down below. The bedrock is back. That's good. So the caves look fine. The caves look like they are doing perfectly well with those. Um, Unless there are some little technical issues that I've not run across, it looks like that is pretty much good to go. It's the stuff happening up top here that still needs some work. The structures that are being generated jetting across the border like that, maybe those need to be detected and just either cut off or cut out somehow. Um, if the that borderline between the old and the new chunks is maybe you're just not seeing structures along there, it's probably not something that someone you know playing in survival is going to really notice. You know what I mean? Now, if on the other hand, some structure like say a woodland mansion or an ocean monument, if someone already has a map to one of those that is in an ungenerated chunk, that's going to be interesting. That's something that maybe on the next snapshot that comes out, the next pre-release that comes out, maybe we'll take a look at some of those maps and maybe, whoops, let's clear the weather here. Maybe we'll see about buying one of those maps, maybe from a villager in one of these little border villages here, and see if we can find one that is across the border. Will that be one that would have been generated anyway in 118, or one generated before? Maybe I should. Maybe I should purchase some maps uh, prior to converting the world, and hopefully have it be a structure that is off in the unexplored regions of the 118 generated sections, and see exactly what comes of that. I'm curious to see what happens there, because that is a scenario not really explored yet. So yeah, I think we're gonna maybe I'll hopefully I'll remember to write that down after this, and we'll try that next time around. But anyway, until then, good night.